Hey everybody, happy 4th of July. I hope you made it through those debates all right last week between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, because they were a hot mess filled with a lot of lies. And today, I'm going to knock down 15 of them. Now, there's certainly a strong angle of opinion with most of the statements made in this debate. A lot of the stuff you can't really prove completely true or false, or it's half true, or it is true, but it's misleading. A lot of these statements are very messy. Statements like this.
We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history.
Now, Biden's claim that he was the best for veterans or that he's done more is actually really hard to prove true or false, and ultimately ends up being a matter of opinion. Because how do you measure good, right? Is it dollar amounts that you offer? Is it the awareness that you bring, the offices that you create? It's kind of unclear, right? One might make the argument that President Herbert Hoover from way back in the day was the best president for veterans because he created the Office of Veterans Affairs, which has done a lot of great things since its inception. One might also point to the World War I veterans and the treatment of them under Hoover and say that he was one of the worst. It ultimately, there's a real matter of opinion on how you split the difference between the good things and the not so good things that ultimately gives your answer to whether or not a president does good or bad for veterans. And I'm not here to give you my full opinion on all the hot button issues of our day. In the coming days on this channel, there will be an analysis done by me and a couple other people where we will give our opinions on the performance of the candidates, the positions they took, etc. Today is about the truth. And you might notice that this list will have more Trump lies featured than it will Biden lies features. It's not that Biden didn't ever try to lie or mislead people. It's just that a lot of what he said was either behind a wall of stutters, or it was kind of impossible to prove true or false. If you want to see me comment more on Biden, you will definitely see a lot of that in the upcoming analysis video done here on the Jane Washington Network. But yeah, just my word of warning, there's more Trump content here than there is Biden content. With all that out of the way, let's go.
You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things.
Tariffs are a tax that is placed on an imported good, and it is a tax paid for by an importer, not an exporter, meaning that whoever purchases these goods overseas, usually a company that will sell it straight back to you, they will be paying the tax, not the Chinese or Mexicans or whoever it is that these tariffs are being placed on. Generally, people in other countries don't pay American taxes, and there's not really a good way to enforce it, even if you want them to pay it. We saw this during Trump's tariffs that he placed during his administration. It's paid for by people here. Tariffs are not paid for by people in other countries. They're paid for by us here.
Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it.
So if you're on YouTube, in the description below, there will be a chart of COVID cases in the United States, along with links to some sources on all my facts on this list. So if you ever want to fact check me, feel free to do it. I would love to hear from you. But what you'll see from there, noting that day one of the pandemic was the 20th of January, 2020, COVID was on the rise during the last few months leading into the election. COVID cases were climbing. So it's a little bit strange to claim that you would fix COVID when cases were accelerating.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security.
Illegal immigrants aren't on Social Security, and they're not on Medicaid because they do not qualify for those things. And no data has been presented to show that in recent years, they're finding a way to get on Social Security or Medicaid. Furthermore, if you were an illegal migrant trying to receive benefits from these programs, that would require you to have to document yourself and expose yourself to the authorities, which is a great way to get caught and sent back.
If you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives.
The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous.
So here, both Trump and Biden are trying to create kind of a one-sided picture of the reception of Roe v. Wade in 1973, with Trump saying that pretty much everybody hated the case, and Biden saying, well, most people loved the case. The reality is it's not really either. The case was contentious back then, just as it was contentious when it was overruled. With people on the extreme yes position and the extreme no positions, basically having the same number of people. It's always been, the public, I should say, has always been very divided on the issue. And constitutional scholars, while we don't have data to know precisely how they feel in aggregate, have a lot of varying opinions. Some of them really respect the opinion because it expanded privacy rights, which is very important to a lot of people. Others criticize the case, specifically the writing of the opinion, for being arbitrary and having no constitutional basis, especially in regards to the 3-trimester rule. Again, link in the description. It shows you a little time capsule of the debate. I suggest that you all check it out.
The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth.
So, killing a baby after it's born is not an abortion, it's infanticide. And infanticide is illegal in all 50 states, and it always has been. At no point in any state, red or blue, have you been allowed to, set a baby off to the side and kill it off later and get off scot-free. That has never been the case in any state.
We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world.
So the U.S.-Mexico border is far from being a particularly safe place, but in the search of the most deadly places in the world, I have not seen it come up a single time. I often see places like Snake Island, which is a small island full of millions of snakes with flesh-eating venom, or the basement of Chernobyl, which will kill you if you're in there for a few minutes, or places like Lahore and Agbagloshi, which will cut your lifespan by decades because of how deadly the air is. But even if you're just looking for pure violence like you would see on the border, there are some cities in Mexico like Tijuana and Los Cabos where you're more likely to be hurt, or places like Syria where it is way more likely that you get hurt. As unsafe as the U.S.-Mexico border can be, it's got nothing on some of the most deadly places in the world. There are a lot of places out there and a lot of gnarly ways to die in it.
The Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want.
So in the original ruling of Roe v. Wade, there was something called the 3-trimester rule, where in that last, basically roughly third of the pregnancy, you were not allowed to get an abortion full stop. So under Roe, you were not allowed to have very late-term abortions. Planned Parenthood v. Casey eventually modified that rule and replaced it with the undue burden rule, which changed things a little bit. But that doesn't change the fact that under Roe, you were not allowed to have these super late-term abortions. There were always some restrictions on it.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go.
Okay, so this might sound a little nitpicky, but Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973. It was overruled in 2022. That is 49 years, not 51 years, 49 years. But even then, prior to the clip I just pulled, for the sake of brevity, Biden talked a little bit about the 3-trimester rule, and he was saying that that was the law, that Roe was the law. The 3-trimester rule was overruled in the 90s in a case called Planned Parenthood v. Casey. So if that was what he was implying, that is also wrong. But either way, 49 years, not 51.
By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position.
The Border Patrol did not endorse Joe Biden.
Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places.
So there is a hotel service for migrants in New York City. I wouldn't necessarily call those luxury hotels, but they are hotels and they are more luxury than the Straits. But they're not done by the Biden administration. That is done by a local government. You can complain about that local government decision as much as you want, but it wasn't Joe Biden. Those are separate. He's separate from that.
He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money.
So if you go out and research how much money we've actually spent in Ukraine, you will see some very huge disparities between the sources. Some of them will say between 50 and 60. Some of them will say between 150 and 200 billion. Where is this difference coming from? Well, in terms of cash, money that we've sent, it is $60 billion approximately. The rest of that valuation that can sometimes add up to not quite 200, but kind of close, comes from equipment. It comes from old equipment that we had that we weren't using. And that stuff, when you add all of its value together, reaches quite a lot. But we did not spend 200 billion US dollars in Ukraine.
They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us.
So just like researching how much money we put into Ukraine was giving me different answers, the same was true for what percentage of NATO was funded by the United States. Some places said below 20%, some places said over 70%. When Donald Trump took office, over 70% of NATO's defense spending was paid for by the United States, which is a lot. But defense spending is not nearly all of NATO's funding, and when you look at the entire funding of NATO, about 22% of the funding was coming from the United States. These days, it's about 16%. Having done the rigorous math, 22% is not nearly 100%. This was a case of Trump exaggerating or forgetting to specify defense spending. Either way, doesn't appear to be true.
We put more police on the street than any administration has.
Joe Biden's administration was not putting policemen on the streets. Policemen are put on the streets by state, county, and local governments, and in the case of D.C., the legislative branch of the federal government. The federal executive branch is not responsible for policemen. So regardless of how much police numbers have grown during Biden's presidency, his administration was not the ones putting them on the street. So that statement was very, very misleading.
Including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. In the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening.
So Joe Biden has never officially used the term super predators when referring to black people. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, has used the term super predators to describe black people. Specifically, it was when she was endorsing a bill that Joe Biden co-sponsored when he was in the Senate. It was a crime bill. But Joe Biden himself never called black people super predators. That was Hillary Clinton.
I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week.
So the 2020 election has been relentlessly investigated by both the right-wing and left-wing prosecutors, politicians, pundits, etc., etc. If you go to the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing organization, they actually have a list of all confirmed cases of electoral fraud in the United States during the 2020 election, because all elections have some amount of fraud. But this pro-Trump group, when they tallied together all the votes, wasn't even near the numbers that Trump and allies suggested, and it certainly wasn't enough to invalidate any state as far as electoral votes go. This has been one of the most exhaustively researched things of our time. At this point, it is pretty clear, and I'll go as far to say as it is fact that there was not a great enough electoral fraud to have actually flipped the election in Biden's favor. So anyways, that was 15 lies from the 2024 first presidential debate debunked. What did you guys think in the comments below? Did I miss anything? Did I get one of these things wrong? Again, if you want to hear more opinions and diving deeper into some of the more advanced claims made, there will be a video going up on the channel in a few days that will be discussing that. As always, like, comment, share. We want to grow our communities. Please bring your facts, not your feelings. If you think I've been lied to, check my sources in the description below. And if you think there's something objectionable about the data, facts, figures, etc., please bring evidence to the contrary. Don't just tell me I've been lied to. I'd appreciate that greatly. With that, this has been You Can't Make This Shit Up. Have a great day.